we sometimes have materialism be our god and we don't realize it. Everybody's doing, oh, you have to keep up with the Joneses. You have to, you need a new car. You need a bigger, better car. You need a more elaborate car. You need more shoes, more jewelry, um, more. So we have it, once you become a consumer, because we're a consumer economy. The consumerism leads to materialism, and then the materialism leads to the status, and then the status makes you kind of a smaller god in a sense, um, for the others that look at things that way. We could make the argument that they're not a god, but they're like more of a deity. We could say Bezos and Zuckerberg and all these people that have, oh my god, they have this $300 million yacht and everything like that. A lot of people actually really look up to that. If someone has a Ferrari, you think that they're better than you or something, and that it's a couple things going on there. To generate that amount of money does take some skill and everything, so I'm not taking away from that. It's more about materialism itself. So what I want to look at here is I I always have a trouble pronouncing this guy's name, but this guy here kind of went the opposite way of all that, and he's kind of like almost one of the original punk rock figures in a sense. Diogenes, that's how you say his name. I always have a trouble pronouncing it. Um, so Diogenes was somebody who wanted to reject the system, and he basically kind of like lived in a barrel, pretty much naked too. But he was actually a very smart man trying to prove a point. So he dedicated his whole life to proving a point. This is called Diogenes. So we're gonna watch this Keyshawn right here.
On the streets, disrespected authority, broke with all forms of etiquette, and didn't care about personal hygiene. On top of that, he defecated, urinated, and even sexually gratified himself in public. When you think of philosophy, the shameless behavior of Diogenes the Cynic probably isn't the first thing that comes to mind. Diogenes strongly opposed social values and institutions because, according to him, these are at odds with human nature. He believed that human society infused us with all kinds of unnatural desires.
Yes. And what have I talked about before? Culture is your operating system. That's kind of what he that's kind of what he knows, and that's kind of what he's going against. The culture is your operating system. So, sorry, pardon me. So he's fully rebelling against this. Um, yeah, so he is fully rebelling against this. He's almost kind of the original punk rocker. This is kind of almost the original Joker in a sense. Um, so let's
That are not only obsolete, but also prevent us from being happy. Therefore, we should strip ourselves of these corrupting man made constructs so we're able to live how we're supposed to live, in agreement with nature. Diogenes' stance toward everything cultured was very obvious. He practiced what he preached, behaving obscenely, with
So this guy lived what he talked about. Like this guy was hardcore. Like he played the part. This is what, you know, I guess was his like divine mission.
no regard for convention. It's no surprise that people called him doggish, dog-like, or simply the dog.
Cuz he's a dog. Yeah, but they do call him a dog, and he lived amongst dogs, and you're gonna see why. He's actually a very smart man.
This video explores Diogenes' philosophy and what we can learn from his ideas.
So why am I showing this to you, and what does it have to do with the topic? So material, like white outputs, wouldn't that make culture God? In a way, culture is a god. Yes. Um, we live in a. We're only talking about the West now. We live in a consumer-based, materialistic culture. Um, a lot of times, we all want the money, so you get the status and you get the materialism with it. So, for example, if I we we're at the ocean, okay, and you're on the beach and everything, and I pull up in like a $300 million Mark Zuckerberg yacht, okay, I instantly get status because they think I have money. Let's just say I do actually have that money. Let's not even say 300 million. Let's just say like a $10 million yacht or something like that, okay? Everyone's gonna want to go on it. All the women are gonna say, "Oh, can I go on the boat and everything?" Like, you know what I mean? People are gonna put me on a pedestal because of that. They're gonna say, "Wow, what he must be so awesome to get that boat." But for some people, they think having the boat is what makes them awesome. That's part of what it is here. And I also want to talk about luxury brands. So saying materialism is God is just it's a hook, but there is some truth to it. But I want to talk about luxury brands and everything too.
A pupil of Socrates named Antisthenes laid out the first ideas of what would later become the philosophical school called Cynicism. The word cynicism comes from the ancient Greek word kunikos, which means doggish, referring to Antisthenes' follower Diogenes, who was born in a Greek colony named Sinope. It's not certain if Antisthenes and Diogenes have ever met, but he and the doggish philosopher definitely shared their preference for living a life of poverty. Both would have agreed that
They liked living a life of poverty. So and back then that's a little bit easier to do, but it still is the same now. So they why you're asking yourself, well, this sounds retarded. Why would they like that? They liked it because they didn't want to be a part of the system. So that's the equivalent of someone today saying like, I don't want to pay tax to the system. I just want to kind of live in the woods and do what I want. I don't want to have to pay anybody. I just kind of want to like do what I want. I basically almost want to be like an animal. Uh, when we say be like an animal, it doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna, be an animal towards others. They just want to live basically in nature. But the society says, "Oh, well, you got to work. So you got to work to pay taxes, and you have to do this and that, and you can't say that. You can't say this. You have to act this way. You have to have all these rules. This is how you need to walk. This is how you need to speak. This is not how you need to do all that." That's why he started acting like a dog and everything to to troll people basically, and it works because I'm talking about it over 1,000 years later.
wealth isn't a matter of
And I'm not saying like go out and be like this guy. I'm trying to give a few points here that will come into everything later.
possessions. I quote, "Wealth and poverty do not lie in a person's estate, but in their souls."
That's a non-materialism type of thing. OGT is in here and says he said this guy here um he was saying like you don't get to take the wealth with you. You don't take the material items with you. Okay, like you're only here for a short amount of time. It seems long, but you're only here once. So all those things don't come with you. Like um, valuing your soul and your values and everything is much more important than keeping up with the Joneses. Okay, like that. Like in our current society, um, they just want you to consume and keep up with the Joneses. Oh, my neighbor got a truck, I got to get a better truck than him. Or if he gets a truck, now all of a sudden my truck sucks because it's an older one or something like that. We're programmed and conditioned to do all this like rats. Um, and that's part of the culture is the operating system. And it's not just us, it was our parents, our grandparents. Boomers really had a lot of that programming, but that's, you know, I think you guys are kind of catching on to where this is going.
End quote. There's a difference between modern day cynicism and cynicism as a philosophy. Cynicism, as it's used today, refers to a negative stance towards human nature, or as the Cambridge Dictionary defines it, the belief that people are only interested in themselves and are
So I'm that's we have a very cynical sense of humor here generally. It's not bad, but it's like, hey, we see that, you know, sometimes in order to succeed in this society, you have to be sociopathic. Even in this world, basically, in the modern culture that we're building and everything, you need to be a little sociopathic. Um, you know, people are just saying, "Oh, I just got to get my money. I don't care what everyone else gets. As long as I get mine, that's all that matters." Well, that's how everyone's functioning, and eventually that becomes a problem. So, and we try to idolize that.
not sincere. The ancient cynics, however, weren't negative at all towards human nature. They just fiercely opposed the societies that humans create for themselves, which, in their opinion, prevent them from living in agreement with their true nature. Thus, they criticize human behavior, but do believe that we can be cured. Diogenes was the embodiment of poverty. He lived in a barrel near the marketplace in the city state of Corinth. He owned nothing.
Which, guys, this took like major commitment, humiliation, embarrassment, cold nights, you know, a bunch of shit like that. You know what I mean? Like he really played the part of trying to do what he's trying to do. He found his purpose and committed to it. It's is it a wacky purpose? Yes, but he made a fucking point.
Nothing except for some old rags and a bowl to eat and drink from. When he saw a child drinking water using his hands, he threw away the bowl as well. Even though he was poor and rejected social norms and customs, he wasn't cut off from society. In fact, as the odd man out, he challenged people by striking conversations and confronting them with their faults. The famous philosopher Plato was a contemporary of Diogenes who believed that ideas are the basis of reality. Diogenes, however, criticized him for being too theoretical. He often mocked Plato by disturbing his lectures. On one occasion, Plato was given praise because of his definition of a human being, namely a featherless chicken. As a response, Diogenes plucked a chicken, entered Plato's academy, and said,
You know what he said? Um,
Chicken, chicken, chicken head, chicken, chicken, chicken head.
oops, I wasn't planning for that. And I want to rewind it a little bit here to point a couple things out. Um, for one, a lot of these oil paintings are amazing, but the surroundings here is really what they're talking about. See the marble pillars, the statues, the high ceilings, the chandeliers, the this couch thing here and stuff like that. This is what people thought success was and still kind of do. So when we see this guy here drinking wine with this gold thing on his head and stuff like that, we say that he must be better than the man on the street. Like his we think like his soul is better and stuff. When this guy might have sold out a lot of people, screwed over a lot of people. He might have had to cheat and steal and rip people off, scam people. Like a lot of the people that we see succeeding in our current society, like they scam. They screw you over. They're just basically like a parasite. Um so some of these oil paintings are really amazing. This is just these are like just placed here. This was not an oil painting.
Rome.
I didn't know that was gonna have play that chicken head thing. I already got it probably demonetized already.
Plato, despite acknowledging Diogenes' brilliance and wit, disapproved of his obscene behavior and called him Socrates gone mad. Plato certainly wasn't the only one he mocked. One day, he visited a marketplace in broad daylight with a lantern, examining random people, saying, "I'm looking for a human being. I haven't found any." Of course,
So what he's doing there is he's calling them all sheep, basically. And he's calling them sheep because, like, he's not just doing it to be cool. He's trying to stop a hierarchy of people. Like we are people that support like the elites, basically. They live off of our back. And we just accept it like, oh, well, that's just how it is. That's how my dad had it, and he grandfather had it, and they had it before that. We're just kind of slaves a little bit, but we lie to ourselves and say that we're not. But you know, you know, we tolerate the poison food, some of the poison water, and all that because that's what the society does. That's the operating system. So he is this is just my opinion of it. Like he's equating them as sheep. He's trolling them. He's walking around. Does anyone here not have Tylenol brain? Okay, like it's actually funny. He was probably cynical. People are usually very funny.
being, I
Well, they can be.
haven't found any. Of course, he meant to say that everyone he encountered
See the chem. Look at this. Look at the chemtrails. Look at that. I don't know. This one's not a chemtrail. This one might be. So the planes do leave a trail, but there really is such things as chemtrails, guys. Like it's pretty obvious.
encountered in the marketplace had already lost touch with their humanity. He tried to convey the same message by walking backward through the porch. When people laughed at him, he challenged them by asking,
Yeah,
"Aren't you ashamed?"
those are normal. But they do have long ones that stay there a really long time. Yeah, that stuff really is a thing.
You walk backward along the whole path of existence and blame me for walking backward along the path of the promenade? End quote. It was probably amusing and frustrating at the same time for Diogenes to see people's blindness to the predicament they had built for themselves and the ridiculous standards they expected each other to conform to. Thus, Diogenes wasn't living just for himself. He also attempted to enlighten the people around him. Many anecdotes describe Diogenes as dog-like or doggish. When he was asked why people describe him that way, he replied, "I fawn on those who give me anything. I yelp at those who refuse. And I set my teeth in rascals." However, one day he took his aspiration.
So people have compared him to Jesus in certain ways because he's saying, "I'm in this world, but not of this world." I don't have your operating system. I'm here, but I don't have your culture as operating system. And again, that society degenerated and fell. Okay, we're talking about Rome and Greece and everything here. That fell. Like they lost. That's done. Okay, so he had a point saying if we continue this way, there's going to be problems.
To be dog-like to a whole new level when a group of wealthy Athenians at a banquet disrespectfully threw bones at him. His response: lifting his leg and urinating on them. Diogenes himself wasn't married. He satisfied his sexual desires by masturbating, which he did, unsurprisingly, in public. When he was ridiculed because of this, he answered, "I wish it were as easy to banish hunger by rubbing my belly." Probably the most famous anecdote about Diogenes is the one in which he mocked Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was a king of Macedon and one of the most successful military commanders in history. During his rule, he was able
And he did all his stuff very young too.
to establish an empire stretching from Greece to India. When Alexander stayed in Corinth, Diogenes took not the slightest notice of him, as opposed to many other philosophers and statesmen who hurried to congratulate their monarch with his accomplishments. Alexander wished to meet this doggish man he had heard about, so he decided to look for him and found him lying in the sun. As recorded by ancient Greek philosopher Plutarch, I quote, Diogenes raised himself up a little when he saw so many people coming towards him and fixed his eyes upon Alexander. And when that monarch addressed him with greetings and asked if he wanted anything, yes, said Diogenes, stand a little out of my sun. End quote. According to Plutarch, Alexander was struck by this treatment. Showing great admiration for Diogenes, he told his followers,
So why did the Alexander the Great think this guy who was saying living like a dog, why would he give a shit about him? Because he had a point and he committed to it. Alexander the Great didn't care about any other peasants. He actually admired this guy. So part of what we're talking about here has to do with the materialism, the consumerism, and stuff like that. This is part of what we're trying to say: the meek shall inherit the earth. That's a little bit of what they're talking about. So a lot of the people that are on top of the current system and all that, it's like, well, yeah, you're on top of the system, but we're in a pretty evil system. You know, like we don't really want to admit that to ourselves because it makes things difficult to take that responsibility. But that's kind of what we live in. So that's what's happening here. Again, just my opinion.
I were not Alexander, I wish I were Diogenes. There's no consensus about how Diogenes died. Some say he died because of rabies, as he was always surrounded by his best friends, dogs. Others believe he died of food poisoning, and some say he ended his own life by holding his breath. Now, after sharing a few of his anecdotes, let's explore why he did what he did and what Diogenes' philosophy entails. The cynics pointed to the meaninglessness
And we are talking about it a long time later.
of civilized life, showing that human beings aren't bad creatures in themselves, but
Like we have people now who, I'm trying to think of someone who, I don't know, like a Mr. Beast type figure. We have people who do things like that, but not anything. I don't know. The people that are coming to mind that are like complete sellouts were like those Island Boys. That's kind of what makes me think of. Reminds me of this a little bit, but we'll just keep playing
have
it.
created a society.
And this is a little bit deep and abstract. I maybe shouldn't have started it this way, but we'll get on to some other topics too.
That estranges them from their true nature. Similar to Socratic thought, the cynics believe
There's more beautiful chemtrails. These are more like a chemtrail.
that estranges them from their true nature. Similar to Socratic thought, the cynics believed that virtue and happiness are in our own hands, and thus external things that are irrelevant when it comes to achieving them. Like Socrates, Diogenes believed that a good life was a life of self-sufficiency, because he owned nothing and wished for nothing more than the satisfaction of his basic needs. It was easy for him to be content. He didn't need things like material wealth and status to be happy, and couldn't care less about what people thought about him. Diogenes enjoyed the small pleasures of
He had like complete freedom of his mind. He wasn't self-conscious about what anybody did, what anybody said, all that. He could do exactly what he wanted to do, which actually takes a lot of confidence and high self-esteem. This actually takes very high self-esteem. He's not just out there saying, "Oh, I'm garbage. I have to live in the street like a dog." No, he's like, you know what? I believe in my message so much that I'm going to embody it.
life, which are much easier to get by, as opposed to the goodies that society wants us to chase, which often take a lot of effort to obtain. Philosopher Epicurus shared this view and also rejected the chase of pleasures that cost us more than we actually receive. Take the chase of material wealth, for example. Diogenes thought of money as the mother of all evil. And let's face it, society expects us to stretch ourselves beyond our means to achieve the superficial goals it lays upon us. Some people are even willing to commit immoral acts, including
A lot of people are willing to commit immoral acts for money.
violence and murder, just to obtain money. And for what? Most of the time, for buying stuff they don't need to impress people they don't even like. Thus, when we take social
And a lot of this is what's men and women do it, so I don't want to make it a gender thing here.
pressure out of the equation, what's the point of chasing material wealth? Diogenes pitied all those people that are stuck on the hamster wheel, running in the hope of getting what they never will, unless they free themselves from the societal rat race, live a simple life that's natural for our species, and enjoy the present moment. This he considered a shortcut to virtue, a much easier and convenient way to be happy. From Diogenes' point of view,
He's also kind of like arguing for like minimalism too. You know, he had to go to an extreme to make his point because he's trying to make a point is what he's trying to do. Otherwise, he would just have some clothes and probably live in a little like shack down by the river and be just fine and not have to worry about trying to convince all these people of all this stuff. But he took it upon himself because he felt that it was important in his way to leave his mark. So he's kind of like self-crucifying himself.
dogs are great teachers on how to live in agreement with nature. They relieve themselves whenever they want, eat when they're hungry, and whatever they can find.
Uh-oh. Looks like Nug Nug. The Nug Nug dog came in there.
Copulate them.
Look at this dog here. Look at this dog.
She belongs to the streets.
Public without shame, and live in the present moment without anxiety. In regards to the last characteristic, we could say that what many spiritual seekers are looking for, dogs already have. Even though a life of poverty may seem a very disempowering position to be in, Diogenes' way of life made him extremely powerful. After all, he was independent of external factors, and therefore no one could do anything to him. He himself, and not the outside world, was in control of his happiness. Moreover, Diogenes sought to live a life of toil, because by deliberately living a hard life, we do not only become stronger, but also more capable of enjoying the little things. An example of this was that he frequently begged from statues, which he saw as a practice of being rejected. To summarize, Diogenes the Cynic was infamous for behaving like a dog, living in a barrel, owning nothing more than some old rags. He was a man of simplicity. His philosophy, cynicism, is not based on complicated systems of ethics and vast academic works. Rather,
And he's also trying to show people, like he has to go to such an extreme to show people, but he's showing like this is also what we came from as cavemen and stuff like that. We didn't really have much, and we forget that part of our nature. So that's what he's trying to do here.
it's based on actions. Diogenes criticized modern society and how it separates people from their true nature. His philosophy is meant as a cure for the pitiful human condition. It encourages us to live a life of toil, break with convention, renounce externals, and enjoy the here and now. Diogenes practiced what he preached. His anecdotes portray his unconventional behavior. He didn't really care about the
So this is another way of maybe explaining it a little bit different. I think I've asked this question on the show before or something. So, um, would you rather, and if you could ask this to people on the street or something like that, male or female, any age, whatever, would you rather have climbed and successfully summited Mount Everest, but you had no social proof of it? You had no pictures, no one believed you. You kept telling them, no, like literally no one believed you. Okay? Or have all the social credit and you didn't actually do it. So you have all the pictures there and people believe you, a few people lie about it. Basically, a few people lie about it and stuff to get other people to believe it. Which one would you rather have? And most people right now would pick the second one. They're like, well, they're gonna say like, well, if a tree falls in the woods, did it make a noise or whatever that bullshit is? Like that's the only argument that they may say. But the point that Diogenes would be making is like, well, no, to climb that mountain, it took a lot of skill, perseverance, effort, luck, courage, and you had an inner accomplishment, the inner accomplishment of winning, the inner world. Um, Most people would say, well, what is the inner winning if I don't get any credit for it from the external people? Like that's the only thing that they really care about. That's basically kind of what he's trying. That's a facet of what he's trying to do.
Things that society tells us to care about: status, money, social norms. Diogenes ignored them.
Which is all the cultural operating system. All of that is the cultural operating system. This was, Greece 2.0, okay? Capitalistic Greece 2.0 or whatever.
Norms, Diogenes ignored them all. There are quite some similarities between Stoicism and Cynicism, thus it's no surprise that Stoicism descends directly from Cynicism. Biographer Diogenes Laertius wrote that Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, had written his philosophy on the dog's tail.
Now we just have, in our modern society, Stoicism.
She belongs to the streets.
As he was instructed by Diogenes' sexually exhibitionist pupil, Crates. Stoicism is clearly a philosophy for those who seek to participate in society and to work together with their fellow human beings. Cynicism, on the other hand, is a philosophy for outsiders. Both, however, support the idea that the attainment of happiness, virtue, and inner peace is entirely within our control.
That's what Jesus was trying to say too. The kingdom of heaven is within. As within, so without, as above, so below. So the inner creates the outer. That's what he's trying to say.
Thank you for watching.
He also views it as a test to not sell out to the society that also failed. Remember, Rome fell, so he had a point.